off the tube and welcome back to Oh My Dinosaur Story Corner Week.
Oh My Dinosaur Story Corner
Week. So if you haven't tuned in the last 2 days, I have been reading you a story from the Bunty for Girls 2002 annual, a book which will soon be celebrating its 20th birthday. It's a story. It's about a spooky mansion. 3 girls go on a school trip to a spooky mansion. They get separated and spooky things start happening. That's where we are so far. If you haven't seen the last 2 videos, I'll link you. This is a link to the previous one. There's a link to both of them in the description. Catch up, then come back here for the next part, assuming you're still interested. Because it's exciting. This is an exciting story. It gets more exciting as it goes along. The first chapter is a kind of a lead-in, a build-up. Then it all starts happening. Right, you all caught up? Are we good? Yeah? Yeah, okay, good. I'll tell you something. I kind of regret giving them all such similar voices, Kat, Alex and Lara, because Kat is kind of an impression of myself. And Lara's just the same, but slightly higher pitch, which doesn't work because she's sarcastic all the time. And then Alex is just sort of the same again, but lower and less excited. I should have swapped those two around, but I didn't. And we're too late to do anything about that. This chapter, if you've been following along, we had the introduction. We had the chapter where Kat was on her own. And this next chapter is a chapter where Lara is all on her own. What's going to happen to her? Let's find out in The Mansion of Strange Shadows, Chapter 3, The Ghastly Gallery. We're totally lost again, aren't we? Groaned Alex as they marched down yet another corridor. We can't be lost, Lara snapped. Kat's lost, so if we were lost too, we'd be with her now, wouldn't we? Although this made absolutely no sense, Alex knew better than to argue when Lara was in one of her moods. She had a bad feeling about this trip to Nightshade Mansion, which only got worse the longer they searched for Kat. And even if they did find her, there was no way Mr. Selby wouldn't have noticed that they'd slipped away from the rest of the class. Hey! Lara shouted. Stop dreaming and come here! I think we've finally stopped going in circles! Then she ducked through a set of doors at the far end of the corridor. Sighing, Alex followed her friend into a long room with tall windows which let in wintry light. She paused, suddenly aware of 100 eyes staring at her. It's a portrait gallery, she gasped, looking around at the paintings hanging on every wall. Wow, Lara smirked, and I thought it was a bowling alley. She peered at a portrait labelled General Humbert Nightshade, which showed a scowling man in a Victorian military uniform. Cheery looking bunch, eh? Have you noticed that none of them are smiling? Alex reckoned living in a cursed house wouldn't give anyone much to smile about, but kept quiet. She didn't want Lara making fun of her for believing in an old superstition, but she couldn't help shivering when the light suddenly dimmed and the shadows in the room grew deeper and darker. Kat isn't here, she said, and we better find her quick or Selby will go ballistic. Lara groaned. I'm tired of trudging around this old dump. Give me a minute to catch my breath, eh? Okay, Alex sighed. I'll check out the other rooms in this corridor and meet you here in 10 minutes. She didn't really want to go exploring on her own, but there was no way she wanted to stay with all these unhappy faces from the past glaring at her. When her friend had gone, Lara wandered past the pictures, reading the names. Lady Joan, she read, looking at a glamorous lady with a severe gaze. Professor Thayer Nightshade was a plump and gloomy man. Every member of the family appeared angry or annoyed. This is like Mr. Lacey's algebra class, Lara muttered, sticking her tongue out at the frowning Sir Louis Nightshade. Bored, Lara crossed to a table that was covered by a large dust sheet and sat on the edge by several tins of chemicals and brushes. 2 paintings had been taken down and were covered by cloths. Obviously someone from the museum was working to remove centuries of dust and grime from the portraits. Many of the paintings require work, said a voice from the shadows, making Lara jump, just as she was about to peek under the cloths. A tall man wearing a paint-spattered smock limped into the light. I'm sorry I gave you a fright, he said. I was just fetching some special equipment. Don't worry, you didn't frighten me, Lara replied, glad that the shadows hid her blush. I knew I shouldn't really be in here, but I was looking for... A friend? The man asked, then laughed at her puzzled look. Children are forever exploring and getting lost, but an old house like this is not always safe to wander in. After all, curiosity killed the... cat? Lara gulped, suddenly very afraid for her friend. I'm sure your friend is well, the man said. Once there were many children in Nightshade Manor, like young Lady Denise. He pulled the cloth from one of the paintings and Lara squinted at it, in its heavy, gold-painted frame. The canvas was brown and stained, so it was hard to make out the girl in the flowing summer gown, with fancy buckled slippers and a necklace with a large crescent moon pendant. No matter how hard she stared, Lara couldn't see the girl's face. The man carefully unscrewed the lid of a small jar. The liquid inside seemed to glow with a golden light as he slowly brushed it onto the face of the girl in the portrait. As he worked, he explained, She once ran and played in the rooms and halls here, but she was very curious. She couldn't resist prying into things which did not concern her. But that was such a long time ago. The brush moved onto the canvas and the girl's face became clearer and brighter, although her expression was far from bright. There's something about her eyes, Lara said. They seem so sad. The man chuckled. She has no reason to be sad now. Her long years of imprisonment are over. Lara was shocked. She was a prisoner here? But why? What had she done? The man smiled a cold smile. She went looking for something that she was told not to search for. Lara saw the painted face starting to glow and Lady Denise's features almost seemed to come to life before her eyes. It's very realistic. Realistic was right, for suddenly the painted eyes turned to look at her. Lara jumped back, but a growl from behind her made her turn sharply. The portrait of General Humbert had bared its teeth in an angry snarl. What's happening? Lara yelled. The man stood back from the table, saying, She has served her sentence. She is free to move on. With a horrible tearing sound, the girl in the portrait peeled slowly away from the canvas. Flakes of paint scattered around her as she sat up and grinned at Lara. But, the man said, before she can go free, someone else must take her place. Who? Lara sputtered. Me? The girl, Lady Denise, nodded slowly. Now it is your turn. You'll find out what it's like to see and hear all around you without being able to move or speak. Lara was moving and speaking, yelling, not likely, as she raced for the door, but before she could reach it, an arm grabbed at her. She looked up in horror as one of the portraits reached out its clutching hands. 100 eyes glared and 50 mouths gnashed their teeth. Painted hands stretched towards her and the Nightshade family portraits struggled to pull themselves free of the frames and capture the dodging Lara. You should never have come here, the artist said. Now you shall never leave. Lara choked when she saw what he was now painting. Somehow, magically, her own face was looking back at her from the canvas. An odd tingling feeling crept over her, growing stronger the more complete the painting became. When she held her hand up to the light, she could see the outline of the window through it. If she didn't act fast, she realised, she would no longer exist in the real world, and would spend years, maybe even centuries, trapped in the picture. I hope I'm not a ghost just yet, she muttered, grabbing the gold frame and yanking the picture away from the phantom painter before he could finish her portrait. It was so heavy she could barely shift it, and soon she and the artist were caught in a tug of war, pulling the picture this way and that. The artist grinned. Don't you want to stay as pretty as a picture forever? But suddenly his grin became a scowl of pain as his hand brushed against one of the chemical bottles. Of course, Lara yelled. It's paint thinner. With that, she let go of the frame and the man lost his balance and toppled backwards. This gave her the time to grab the bottle and pull off the stopper. You're another painting, aren't you? She said as the furious artist and the clutching Lady Denise stalked towards her. So you'd better back off or I'll wipe the smile off your face for good. Her fingers, gripping the bottle, were almost totally transparent. Acting quickly, she splashed liquid on the fresh portrait of herself and the colours instantly smudged and ran. As they dripped off the canvas, more colour returned to her skin and she was solid again. Just then, a painted hand reached down from behind and grasped Lara's wrist. She struggled and the bottle flew from her grip. The artist and the girl hissed like snakes when the glass shattered and the thinning liquid splashed up at them. With a horrible groan, the two figures squirmed and shrank. The colours drained from their faces and mixed with the colours of their clothes, and they dribbled onto swirling puddles on the floor. Even then, they didn't stay still as a shadow drifted over them, dragging them away. Lady Denise shimmered back into view on the canvas, while the other murkier patch of oily colour slithered up a table leg and disappeared under the protective cloth. The hand which held her melted back into its painting and Lara raced forwards, pulling the cloth away. The portrait beneath showed the cruel eyes and scowl of the artist. Only here he wore a frilled shirt, a long dark cloak, and he gripped a wolf's head cane in his clawed fingers. Beneath this, engraved in the frame, were the words, Jonathan Nightshade, 13th Lord of Nightshade Mansion. Your face is a picture, she told the portrait before throwing the cloth back over it, so the stories about the curse were right. But I wonder what I wasn't supposed to find. Then she saw that there was something different about the girl's portrait. Her necklace is missing, she said, dropping to her knees and searching the floor. Is this what you were looking for? Asked a voice. Lara jumped and came face to face with Kat, who held the moon-shaped pendant as well as a metal star. I'm glad I found you, Kat said. Looks like we're collecting a whole set of these. Let's get Alex and get out of here, Lara insisted before both girls said, You are not going to believe what happened to me. The two girls laughed as they left the gallery. Neither of them heard the voice which still laughed in the shadows. Bum bum bum. So that was chapter 3. Join me again tomorrow for chapter 4, Out of Time, in which we'll find out what Alex has been up to while Lara's been in the portrait gallery. So I hope you come back to join me for that one. Until then though, thank you for watching and have a nice day.
Tell me a story, oh ho ho. It's not nearly Christmas, oh ho ho. It's a story, oh ho ho. I don't like this, oh ho ho. That is what Sewage said when he watched this. Oh ho ho.
So yeah, what are you thinking of the story so far? Are you enjoying it? Hopefully I'm conveying it well enough that you're able to, enjoy it, because like I think it's a really good bit of writing. I'm really enjoying revisiting it. Hopefully I'm reading it in a way that's engaging to you and you're not bored by me telling you the story. I think it's quite fun. Yeah. Bye.
Oh ho ho.